This is a fictional American romance story created using AI for entertainment purposes only, intended strictly for audiences 18 years and older and not suitable for children under 18.
The Carter apartment overlooked the East River, a modest but elegant two-bedroom space in a Brooklyn high-rise where the city lights glimmered every night like distant constellations. On most evenings, Daniel Carter found comfort in that view. Tonight was no different. He stood at the kitchen counter, sleeves rolled up, carefully slicing lemon into thin wedges, while the faint sound of traffic drifted through the slightly open window. Olivia light lemon in her sparkling water. 2 slices, never 3. It was a small habit he had memorized years ago, the kind of detail people accumulate when love becomes routine rather than excitement. "Dinner smells good," Olivia called from the hallway. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floor as she entered the kitchen, shrugging off her beige trench coat. She looked exactly the way Daniel had first noticed her 8 years earlier, polished, confident, magnetic without trying. Except now, there was something restless in the way she moved. Daniel handed her the glass. "Long day?" he asked. Olivia exhaled, leaning against the counter. "Campaign launch," she said. "Influencers, photographers, 2 executives arguing about brand messaging like it was the fate of the universe." Daniel smiled faintly. "That sounds exhausting." "It is," she took a sip. "But exciting too." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them wasn't hostile. It was simply familiar, the kind of quiet that settles into long relationships. But lately, Daniel had begun to feel it differently, like something missing from a song he used to know by heart. They ate dinner at the small table by the window. Olivia scrolled through her phone between bites of pasta, occasionally laughing softly at something on the screen. Daniel noticed. He didn't mention it. "What's funny?" he asked eventually. "Jessica sent photos from our old college group chat," Olivia said. "She's planning a girls' trip next month." "Where to?" "Miami." She looked up, watching his reaction carefully. Daniel shrugged. "That sounds fun. You don't mind?" "Why would I?" Olivia studied him for a moment longer, as if expecting resistance. Instead, Daniel simply continued eating. "You should go," he added. "You've been working non-stop." Her shoulders relaxed. "Really?" "Of course." A small smile appeared on her lips. "God, I miss spontaneous weekends," she said. "Beach bars, terrible margaritas, dancing until 3 in the morning." Daniel chuckled. "I remember those days." "Do you?" she teased. He met her eyes. "Some of them." The conversation drifted to safer topics, her marketing campaign, a case Daniel was handling at the firm, a friend's upcoming wedding in Connecticut. Ordinary things. Later that night, Olivia stood in the bathroom removing her makeup while Daniel answered a few emails in the living room. The glow of his laptop illuminated the dark apartment. A notification sound suddenly echoed from Olivia's phone, which she had left on the coffee table. Daniel glanced at it instinctively. The screen lit up. A message preview appeared. "Marcus, still thinking about Miami already?" Daniel frowned slightly. "Miami?" The trip hadn't even happened yet. Before he could read more, Olivia emerged from the hallway. She picked up the phone quickly, her expression tightening for a fraction of a second before smoothing out again. "Work?" Daniel asked casually. "Yeah," she replied too quickly. Then she turned the phone face down. Daniel watched her for a moment. Something about the moment felt small, insignificant. And yet, later that night, lying awake beside her while the distant city hummed beyond the windows, he couldn't stop thinking about that single message. Still thinking about Miami already? Daniel didn't yet know why the words unsettled him, but somewhere deep inside his chest, a quiet certainty began to form, like the first hairline cracking glass. The kind you only notice once the fracture has already begun. Miami at night felt like a different universe. The air carried the warmth of the ocean even after midnight, heavy with music drifting from rooftop bars and the faint scent of salt from the shoreline. Neon reflections shimmered across wet pavement as Olivia Carter stepped out of the rideshare with 3 of her college friends, laughter spilling into the humid night. "God, I forgot how alive this city feels," Jessica said, adjusting the strap of her dress. Olivia smiled, though the word alive lingered in her mind longer than it should have. Alive. For the past few years, her life in Brooklyn had felt stable. Predictable mornings, corporate meetings, dinner with Daniel, weekends that passed quietly like pages turning in a book she had already read. Here, everything moved faster, louder, brighter. Their destination was a rooftop lounge overlooking Miami Beach, the kind of place where influencers angled their phones carefully toward the skyline, while bartenders poured cocktails that looked almost too beautiful to drink. Jessica ordered the first round. To freedom, she announced, raising her glass. Olivia laughed. It's a weekend trip, not a prison break. Same difference when you're married, Jessica teased. The group erupted in laughter. Olivia lifted her glass, letting the cold sweetness of the drink wash away the last traces of her long flight. Music pulsed through the floor beneath her heels. Conversations overlapped. Someone nearby popped a bottle of champagne, and for the first time in months, she felt the tension in her shoulders dissolve. They danced later, the night stretching forward in a blur of lights and bass. At some point, Olivia stepped away from the crowd to catch her breath near the balcony railing. The ocean stretched endlessly into darkness beyond the glittering hotels. That view never gets old. The voice came from beside her. Olivia turned. The man, leaning casually against the railing, looked like he belonged exactly where he stood, confident without trying, a navy blazer thrown over an open-collar shirt. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. His smile carried the ease of someone accustomed to attention. "First time in Miami?" he asked. "Not exactly," Olivia replied, "but it's been a while." "Business or vacation?" "Girls' trip." He chuckled softly. That explains the energy on the dance floor. Olivia folded her arms against the railing. "And you?" she asked. "Marcus Hale." He extended his hand. "Olivia Carter." The handshake lasted a moment longer than necessary. Marcus studied her with quiet curiosity. "You don't look like someone who usually comes here for chaos." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" "You look..." He paused thoughtfully. "Too composed." She laughed. "Trust me, my friends would disagree." "Still," he said, "there's a difference between people who come here to escape their lives and people who already love the lives they have." His gaze lingered just enough to make the comment feel personal. Olivia felt something shift inside her chest. "My life is fine," she replied. Marcus nodded. "Fine can be dangerous." "Why?" "Because most people realize too late that they wanted more than fine." For a moment, neither spoke. The music inside swelled louder as the door opened and closed behind them. Somewhere in the crowd, Jessica shouted Olivia's name. Marcus leaned casually against the railing again. "So," he said lightly, "how long are you in Miami?" "Just the weekend." "That's a shame." "Why?" "Because weekends disappear too quickly." His tone carried a suggestion that made Olivia's stomach tighten unexpectedly. She glanced down at her phone. A message from Daniel appeared on the screen. "Daniel, hope you made it safely. Have fun tonight." Olivia stared at the words. Marcus noticed. "Husband?" he asked. "Yes." "Lucky man." The compliment landed somewhere complicated inside her. For a brief moment, she imagined Daniel sitting in their quiet Brooklyn apartment, probably reading case files or answering emails beneath the soft glow of his laptop. Reliable, steady, safe. Marcus watched her carefully. "You should go back to your friends," he said after a moment. Olivia hesitated. Then she slipped her phone into her purse. "Maybe in a minute." Marcus smiled. The music from the lounge passed through the warm night air as the city shimmered below them. And somewhere between the laughter inside and the quiet electricity of the balcony, a boundary Olivia had once believed was solid began to soften. Not broken, not yet, but no longer as certain as it had been only a few hours earlier. The first thing Daniel noticed was the quiet. Not the ordinary quiet that filled their apartment most evenings, but a different kind. The kind that arrived when someone had something to hide. Olivia returned from Miami on a Sunday afternoon. Daniel had offered to pick her up at JFK, but she texted him from the plane instead. "Uber is easier, don't worry about it." He told himself it made sense. Airports were chaotic, she was probably tired. Still, when she walked through the apartment door an hour later, wheeling her suitcase across the hardwood floor, something about the moment felt strangely rehearsed. "You're home," Daniel said from the kitchen. Olivia smiled quickly and stepped into his arms, the scent of unfamiliar perfume lingering faintly in her hair. "I missed you." The words were correct, but her voice carried the faint distance of someone reciting a line she had practiced. "How was Miami?" he asked. "Wild," she said with a soft laugh. "Jessica lost her phone the first night. Sophie almost got us kicked out of a club." Daniel smiled politely. "Sounds like your kind of chaos." "Exactly." She pulled away from the hug a little too quickly and began unpacking her bag. Daniel watched her move through the apartment, dropping her purse on the counter, checking her phone, typing a quick reply before sliding it face down. Small things, the kind most people wouldn't notice. But Daniel had spent 8 years learning the rhythm of Olivia's habits, and something about that rhythm had changed. Over the next few days, the changes multiplied. She worked later than usual. Her phone stayed within reach at all times. Twice, Danielle walked into the living room while she was texting and watched her screen dim instantly. "Work stuff," she said both times, almost automatically. Danielle nodded. He wanted to believe her. One Thursday afternoon, during a break between meetings at his firm in Manhattan, Danielle opened Instagram without really thinking. Olivia had posted a photo from Miami. He recognized the rooftop bar immediately from the skyline behind her. In the picture, Olivia stood between Jessica and Sophie, laughing as the ocean shimmered behind them. The caption was simple: "Girls who survive Miami together stay together." Hundreds of likes had already gathered beneath it. Daniel scrolled past the comments. Then he noticed something else, a second photo in the post. Olivia standing on the balcony again, this time turned slightly towards someone just outside the frame. The man's shoulder appeared in the corner, navy blazer, arm resting casually against the railing. Daniel frowned. He tapped the screen to enlarge the image. The man's face wasn't visible, but Olivia's expression was different. Not the polite smile she gave in photos with colleagues or distant friends. This one was softer, warmer. The kind of look Daniel hadn't seen directed at him in a long time. He locked his phone slowly. It meant nothing, he told himself. Just someone standing nearby. That night, Olivia came home after 9. "Sorry," she said while slipping off her heels. "Client dinner ran late." Daniel looked up from the couch. "How was it?" "Fine." She walked straight to the kitchen and poured herself water. Daniel noticed she didn't ask about his day. The conversation that followed drifted through safe territory, work updates, a news story about rising rent in Manhattan, a reminder about Daniel's mother visiting next month. But something unspoken sat between them. Later, while Olivia showered, Daniel stood by the bedroom window watching the lights of the city flicker across the river. His phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. Someone had tagged Olivia in a story. Daniel opened it before he could stop himself. It was a short video from Miami. Music thundered in the background as the camera spun across the crowded rooftop bar. Jessica appeared first, laughing wildly into the lens. Then the camera shifted. For a split second, Olivia came into view. She stood near the balcony railing. Marcus Hale stood beside her. Even through the shaky video, Daniel could see the ease between them, the way Marcus leaned closer when she spoke, the way Olivia laughed at something he said. The clip ended quickly, 15 seconds, but Daniel watched it 3 times. When Olivia returned from the shower, wrapped in a soft grey robe, she found him sitting quietly on the edge of the bed. "You okay?" she asked. Daniel looked up. For a moment, he almost asked, "Who is Marcus? Why does he look at you like that? Why didn't you tell me?" Instead, he forced a small smile. "Just tired," he said. Olivia nodded and climbed into bed. Within minutes, her breathing slowed into sleep, but Daniel remained awake. Outside, the city moved endlessly. Sirens in the distance, trains rattling beneath the river, the restless pulse of New York that never truly stopped. And somewhere inside that endless motion, a single thought followed him like a shadow he could no longer ignore. Trust, Daniel realized, rarely shattered all at once. Sometimes it simply thinned, quietly, gradually, until even the smallest doubt felt heavy enough to break it. The rain began sometime after midnight. By morning, Brooklyn looked washed in grey light, the East River rippling under a sky that refused to brighten. Daniel had barely slept. He sat at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee that had long since gone cold, his laptop open but untouched. Legal documents filled the screen, contracts, case notes, deadlines waiting patiently for his attention. But his mind kept returning to the same 15 seconds of video. Marcus leaning close, Olivia laughing, the intimacy that shouldn't have been there. From the bedroom, Daniel heard Olivia moving around, the soft thud of drawers opening and closing as she got ready for work. For a moment, he considered letting it go. People misinterpret things online all the time, he told himself. A video clip meant nothing. A stranger's shoulder in a photograph meant nothing. But the quiet inside him had turned into something heavier, a question that refused to disappear. Olivia entered the kitchen 10 minutes later, dressed in a fitted navy blouse and pencil skirt, her hair pulled neatly into a low bun. She looked composed, efficient, untouched by whatever storm had kept Daniel awake all night. "Morning," she said lightly, reaching for the coffee machine. "Morning." Daniel watched her pour herself a cup. She checked her phone while the coffee brewed, her thumb moving quickly across the screen. The same familiar habit, the same quiet distance. "Olivia," Daniel said. She glanced up. Yeah? Can we talk for a minute? Her expression shifted slightly. About what? Daniel gestured toward the chair across from him. Just sit down. She hesitated. Then she lowered herself into the seat. What's going on? Daniel took a slow breath. I saw the video from Miami, he said. For a fraction of a second, Olivia's eyes flickered. Then the composure returned. Okay, she replied. And? There was a man with you on the balcony. That's not exactly shocking at a bar. Daniel kept his voice steady. Who is Marcus? This time the silence lasted longer. Olivia leaned back in the chair, studying him carefully. You've been stalking my social media now? I asked a simple question. Marcus is someone I met, she said finally. A guy at the bar. And? And what? Daniel's hands tightened around the edge of the table. You seemed close. Olivia laughed. Actually laughed. Daniel, it was a weekend trip. I know. People talk. People flirt. That's what happens in places like Miami. Daniel's voice dropped. Did something happen between you? The question hung in the air. Olivia tilted her head slightly. Why would you assume that? Because you're acting different. Different how? You're distant. You hide your phone. You come home late. That's called having a career, she replied sharply. Daniel's chest tightened. Olivia, please. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm asking you to be honest. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed as if the conversation had become tedious. Fine, she said. Daniel waited. Her next words came casually. Marcus and I kissed. The room went very still. Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. Just once, Olivia added quickly. It was nothing. Daniel looked down at the table. For several seconds he said nothing. The silence stretched until Olivia shifted uncomfortably in her chair. You're overreacting, she said. Daniel's voice was barely audible. You kissed someone else. It was a stupid moment. You're my wife, and you're acting like I committed a crime. Daniel looked up. His eyes were red now. I trusted you. The words cracked somewhere in the middle. Olivia watched him carefully. Then something unexpected happened. She smiled. Not warmly, almost impatiently. Oh my God, she said quietly. Are you actually going to cry right now? Daniel froze. I'm trying to talk to you, he said hoarsely. Daniel, it was a kiss, she said, shaking her head. You're acting like the world ended. You betrayed me. No, I had one reckless moment. Daniel's eyes filled despite his effort to control it. The first tear slid down before he could stop it. Olivia leaned back in her chair. Her expression hardened. This is exactly what I mean, she said. What? You're so fragile. Daniel stared at her. Fragile? You cry over everything serious, she continued. Every disagreement turns into this emotional meltdown. That's not what this is. Then what is it? My wife kissed another man. Olivia rolled her eyes. It was Miami, Daniel. People make mistakes. You're mocking me. I'm being realistic. Daniel wiped his face, humiliation burning through him now. I thought you would at least be sorry. I said it was stupid. That's not the same thing. Olivia stood abruptly, grabbing her purse from the counter. I don't have time for this drama, she said. Drama? I have a meeting in 30 minutes. Daniel watched her move toward the door. Something inside him felt like it had collapsed quietly. Did it stop at the kiss? He asked suddenly. Olivia paused. She didn't turn around. You're exhausting, she said. Then she walked out. The apartment door closed behind her with a soft click. Daniel remained at the kitchen table long after the sound faded. The rain outside had started again, tapping gently against the windows. For the first time since their marriage began, Daniel realized something that settled deep in his chest like cold stone. The betrayal hurt. But Olivia's laughter, her casual cruelty when he was at his most vulnerable, hurt far more. Because in that moment, he understood something he had never allowed himself to see before. The woman he loved no longer respected him, and once respect disappears, love rarely survives for long. The apartment became quieter after that morning. Not the peaceful quiet Daniel once appreciated, but the kind that settles between two people who have stopped reaching for each other. In the days following the confrontation, Olivia behaved as though nothing significant had happened. She left for work at the usual time. She returned in the evening, sometimes later than before. She spoke about meetings, marketing campaigns, and office gossip with the same casual tone she had always used. The only difference was the distance in Daniel's responses. He listened, he nodded, but he no longer filled the silence. On Tuesday night, Olivia noticed first. "You're very quiet lately," she said from the kitchen, stirring pasta sauce on the stove. Daniel sat at the dining table, reviewing documents for a client case. "Just work," he replied. "You've been saying that for 3 days. Big case," Olivia shrugged. "Well, try not to disappear completely. It's weird." Daniel didn't respond. He simply turned another page in the file. Across the room, Olivia studied him for a moment before returning her attention to the stove. To her, the silence looked familiar. Daniel had always been the quieter one in the relationship, the patient listener, the one who absorbed tension instead of escalating it. She assumed the confrontation had exhausted him, that eventually he would move past it. People did that in marriages. They argued, emotions flared, then life resumed. But Daniel had not moved past it. He had simply moved inward. Later that night, long after Olivia fell asleep, Daniel sat alone in the living room with his laptop. The soft glow of the screen illuminated the careful calm in his expression. A legal document filled the display. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Daniel didn't type immediately. Instead, he opened another folder first. Inside it were screenshots. Instagram posts from Miami. The video clip showing Olivia beside Marcus Hale. A time-stamped photo Jessica had posted on the same rooftop where Marcus appeared again in the background. Daniel had spent the last 2 evenings quietly tracing the digital trail. Nothing dramatic, no scandalous photographs, just small pieces that, together, formed a pattern. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. For years, Daniel had represented clients in complicated corporate disputes. People who fought bitter legal battles over contracts, mergers, and broken agreements. He understood evidence, documentation, preparation. But preparing a case against his own marriage felt surreal. The apartment creased softly as the building settled around midnight. Daniel heard Olivia turn in bed down the hallway. He closed his eyes briefly. The memory of her voice from that morning replayed again. "Are you actually going to cry right now?" The words had landed deeper than any accusation. Not because of the betrayal itself, but because of the contempt behind it. Daniel opened his eyes again and began typing. Carefully, methodically. He entered the basic information first. Names, dates, residence details. The legal language felt distant, almost clinical. But each sentence moved him closer to something irreversible. 2 days later, during his lunch break in Manhattan, Daniel stepped into a small cafe across from his office building. He opened his laptop again. A message notification appeared on Olivia's public Instagram. Jessica had posted another throwback photo from Miami. Daniel clicked it without thinking. 4 women standing at the rooftop bar. And again, just behind Olivia, Marcus Hale appeared in the corner of the frame. This time, his hand rested lightly against the railing beside her, close enough that it suggested familiarity. Daniel saved the image, not because it proved anything on its own, but because patterns mattered. That evening, Olivia came home unusually cheerful. "You should see the campaign my team just pitched today," she said, dropping her bag onto the couch. "The client loved it." "That's good," Daniel replied. "You're not even going to ask what the campaign was for?" He looked up from his laptop. "What was it for?" "Luxury travel branding." Olivia smiled faintly. "Actually, it reminded me of Miami." Daniel held her gaze for a moment. "Did it?" "Yeah," she hesitated slightly. "You know, about last week." Daniel waited. "I think we both overreacted a little," she said carefully. "We argued. That's normal." Daniel nodded once. "Yes." Olivia seemed relieved by the simplicity of his response. "Good," she said, "because I really don't want us turning into one of those couples who fights over every little thing." Daniel closed his laptop slowly. "Neither do I." And he meant it. Because what he was preparing now was not another argument. Arguments try to fix something. This was different. This was an ending written quietly in advance. That night, as Olivia scrolled casually through her phone in bed beside him, Daniel stared at the dark ceiling above them. He realized something strange. The pain was still there, but it had begun to transform into something colder. Clarity. The same clarity he used in courtrooms and negotiations. Across the mattress, Olivia laughed softly at something on her screen. Daniel didn't ask what it was. He simply listened to the sound, and continued planning the moment when the silence between them would finally break. Monday morning arrived with the quiet predictability Olivia had always associated with control. The sky above Brooklyn was pale and clear, the early light reflecting softly off the East River as commuters moved toward Manhattan. Olivia stood in the kitchen wearing a cream blouse and tailored slacks, scrolling through emails while waiting for her coffee to finish brewing. Daniel had already left for work. He'd been leaving earlier lately. At first, she assumed it was another demanding case, something involving corporate negotiations that kept him buried in paperwork. Daniel often disappeared into long workdays when he was preparing for litigation. She didn't question it. The quiet between them had begun to feel almost comfortable. Less tension, fewer conversations that risked drifting back toward Miami. Olivia reached for her coffee just as the intercom buzzed from the apartment wall. Delivery for Carter. She frowned slightly. I'm not expecting anything. Certified envelope, the voice replied, needs a signature. Olivia walked to the door and pressed the release button. A minute later, a uniformed courier knocked lightly. Olivia Carter? Yes. He handed her a thin manila envelope attached to a digital clipboard. Signature here, please. Olivia scribbled her name quickly. Have a good day, the courier said before disappearing down the hallway. The door closed. For a moment, the apartment returned to its usual silence. Olivia carried the envelope back to the kitchen counter, sipping her coffee absent-mindedly. Probably something from Daniel's firm, she thought. Legal documents arrived at their apartment occasionally when a client needed a quick signature. She slid her finger beneath the seal and opened it casually. Several official papers slipped onto the marble countertop. At first, she only noticed the letterhead. New York State Supreme Court. Olivia frowned. Then her eyes moved to the bold title beneath it. Petition for dissolution of marriage. The coffee cup slipped slightly in her hand. She set it down slowly. Her gaze moved across the page again, this time reading every word carefully. Daniel Carter, petitioner. Olivia Carter, respondent. For several seconds her mind refused to process what she was seeing. Divorce. The word appeared again and again throughout the document, woven into paragraphs of formal legal language. Division of property, financial disclosures, terms of separation. Olivia's heart began to pound. No, she murmured quietly. She flipped to the next page. Daniel's signature sat neatly at the bottom. The date was from 3 days ago. 3 days. A cold realization crept slowly into her chest. Daniel hadn't been working late. He had been preparing this. Her phone vibrated on the counter. A text message appeared. Daniel, you should have received the documents this morning. Olivia stared at the screen, disbelief flooding her chest. She typed quickly. Olivia, what is this? The response came almost immediately. Danielle, divorce papers. Her fingers hovered over the phone. Anger surged to her confusion. Olivia, you're being dramatic. The typing indicator appeared, then disappeared. A moment later, Daniel called. Olivia answered instantly. What the hell is this? She demanded. Daniel's voice on the other end sounded calm, controlled. It's exactly what it says. You file for divorce? Yes. You didn't even talk to me about it. We already talked, Daniel said quietly. That argument? That wasn't a decision to end the marriage. It was the moment I understood our marriage had already ended. Olivia paced the kitchen now, the papers crumpling slightly in her grip. This is insane, she snapped. People don't get divorced over one stupid kiss. There was a pause. It wasn't a kiss, Daniel replied. Then what? The way you looked at me when I was hurting. Olivia stopped walking. You're seriously destroying our life because I hurt your feelings? No, Daniel said. I'm ending it because you felt nothing when you did. Silence filled the call for several seconds. Olivia glanced again at the legal document. Detailed sections about property division, financial accounts, the Brooklyn apartment. Her stomach tightened. You already planned all of this, she said slowly. Yes. When? After our conversation. You mean after you cried? Daniel didn't respond immediately. When he spoke again, his voice remained calm. Yes. The simplicity of the answer unsettled her. You're overreacting, Olivia insisted. Couples recover from worse things than this. Some do, and we could too. Another pause. Olivia, Daniel said quietly, when I asked if you felt sorry, you laughed. Her grip tightened on the phone. That's not... You called me fragile, he continued. You said I was exhausting. I was angry, and I was humiliated. The word landed heavier than anything else he had said. Olivia's confidence began to waver. You're really doing this, she said softly. Yes. She glanced again at the signature at the bottom of the page. Danielle Carter. Neat, decisive. You already have a lawyer handling this, she said. I am a lawyer. The reminder stung. Olivia suddenly understood something she had never considered before. Daniel had not been sitting quietly because he was weak. He had been preparing, carefully, strategically. You planned everything, she whispered. Yes, and you're just walking away? Daniel's answer came without hesitation. You already walked away first. The call ended a few seconds later. Olivia stood alone in the kitchen, the divorce papers spread across the counter like evidence of a life she had assumed was secure. Outside the window, the city continued its ordinary Monday rhythm. Cars moved through the streets. People hurried to work. Somewhere in Manhattan, Daniel Carter was probably already sitting in his office, reviewing another set of documents with the same quiet focus he had always possessed. For the first time since Miami, Olivia felt something she hadn't expected. Not anger, not irritation, but the sharp, rising edge of fear. Because the man she had mocked for crying had just proven something she never believed possible. He was no longer asking for respect. He had simply taken it back. The first rumor appeared quietly. Like most things in New York's professional circles, it traveled through polite conversations disguised as concern. 2 weeks after the divorce papers arrived, Olivia noticed the change during a Monday morning meeting at her marketing firm in Midtown Manhattan. The conference room was full. Creative directors, account managers, and junior strategists gathered around a polished glass table, reviewing campaign projections. Olivia presented a luxury hospitality pitch she had spent days preparing. Her voice remained confident, her slides were precise. But something in the room felt different. People listened, they nodded, yet a subtle tension hovered just beneath the surface. When the meeting ended, most of the team filed out quickly. Jessica lingered behind. "Hey," Jessica said softly. Olivia closed her laptop. "What's up?" Jessica hesitated. "I heard something." Olivia felt a flicker of irritation. "Heard what?" Jessica lowered her voice. "That you and Daniel are separating." The word landed harder than Olivia expected. "Who told you that?" "People talk." "That's not an answer." Jessica shifted uncomfortably. "One of the partners at your firm had dinner with my boyfriend's boss last week," she said carefully. "Apparently, Daniel mentioned he's going through a divorce." Olivia looked away, gathering her papers with more force than necessary. "So now the entire city knows my marriage status?" "Not the whole city," Jessica said. Then she paused. "But people are asking questions." Olivia let out a sharp breath. "Of course they are." She grabbed her purse and walked toward the elevator without another word. Behind her, Jessica watched with a mixture of sympathy and quiet concern. By the time Olivia reached the lobby, the whispers had already begun to multiply. In industries built on relationships and perception, personal lives rarely stayed private for long. Later that afternoon, Olivia overheard 2 junior employees speaking in the hallway outside her office. "I heard she met someone in Miami." "Seriously?" "That's what my friend said. Apparently Daniel's the one who filed." Olivia closed the office door before they could notice her standing there. Her chest tightened. The story was changing shape already. Not a private mistake, a scandal. Meanwhile, across the East River in Manhattan, Daniel experienced the same rumor from a very different angle. He was standing near the coffee station at his law firm when his colleague Andrew approached him. Andrew had been Daniel's friend since their early associate days. "You okay?" Andrew asked quietly. Daniel glanced up. "I'm fine." Andrew studied him carefully. "I heard about the divorce." Daniel nodded once. "It's moving forward." Andrew leaned against the counter. "Do you want to talk about it?" Daniel hesitated. Lawyers were trained to keep personal matters contained, but Andrew's tone carried genuine concern. "It wasn't a mutual decision," Daniel said finally. Andrew's expression hardened slightly. "She cheated?" Daniel didn't answer directly, but the silence spoke clearly enough. Andrew exhaled slowly. "Man, I'm sorry." Daniel gave a small nod. "Thank you. You sure you're okay?" "I will be." But as Daniel returned to his office, the quiet confidence he projected to the world began to feel heavier. At night, the Brooklyn apartment no longer felt like home. Olivia had moved into the guest room weeks ago. The distance between their doors mirrored the distance between their lives. Daniel spent most evenings working late, the glow of legal documents filling his laptop screen long after midnight. But sometimes, when the work finally stopped, the silence pressed in. Memories appeared uninvited. Sunday mornings making coffee together, road trips upstate in the fall, the small routines that had once defined their marriage. Ending a relationship in court was procedural. Ending it emotionally was slower, lonelier. Across the apartment hallway, Olivia lay awake scrolling through her phone. Her Instagram notifications had begun to slow. A few colleagues stopped liking her posts. One client unexpectedly asked for a different account manager earlier that week. Nothing overt, just subtle shifts. Reputation, she realized, was fragile, especially when rumors suggested she had been the reason a marriage collapsed. One night, Olivia found herself staring at an old photo on her phone. She and Daniel at a charity gala 3 years earlier. He stood beside her in a dark suit, his arm resting gently around her waist. She remembered the pride in his eyes that evening, the quiet way he supported her career, the steadiness she had once taken for granted. Olivia locked the phone and placed it on the nightstand. For the first time since the divorce papers arrived, a strange thought entered her mind. She had assumed Daniel's decision would eventually soften, that he would reconsider, that time would restore the balance she once controlled. But the world around her was beginning to show a different truth. The story spreading through New York's quiet professional circles had already chosen its version of events. Daniel Carter, the composed attorney betrayed by his wife. Olivia Carter, the woman who underestimated the man she humiliated. And reputations, once shaped by a narrative like that, were difficult to reclaim. In the dark hallway between their separate bedrooms, the silence of the apartment seemed to echo a realization both of them were beginning to understand. Some damage never remains private. Eventually, the world sees the cracks. Years passed in ways neither of them had once imagined when they first stood together in a small courthouse on a spring afternoon, believing their future would be simple and shared. For Daniel, the early months after the divorce were the hardest. The apartment in Manhattan felt unnaturally quiet. Every familiar object seemed to hold a memory. Olivia's books, still stacked on a shelf she had forgotten to clear, the wine glasses they had bought during their first trip together, the worn couch where they had spent countless late nights talking about cases, friends, and the vague hopes of a life that once felt certain. Loneliness came in waves rather than in a single overwhelming storm. Some days Daniel moved through work with professional focus, arguing motions in court and drafting contracts with the same steady discipline he had always relied on. But evenings were different. Silence revealed the emotional aftermath that legal preparation had helped him avoid confronting. Friends often assumed that because he had been calm during the divorce, he had escaped the deeper damage. The truth was quieter and more complicated. Composure had been a strategy, not immunity. Gradually, time did what it always does. It softened the sharpest edges of memory. Daniel stopped checking Olivia's social media, stopped wondering what she might be doing or whether she regretted anything she had said during their final argument. Therapy helped him understand something he had never fully recognized before. The divorce had not been a personal failure, but the end of a relationship that had slowly lost its mutual respect long before the betrayal. He began to rebuild his life in small, deliberate ways. He moved to a slightly smaller apartment near the Hudson River, choosing a neighborhood that felt calmer than the constant intensity of Midtown. On weekends he ran along the river paths, something he had never had time for when his marriage and career both demanded so much of his attention. Work remained demanding, but it no longer defined every hour of his life. He allowed friendships to grow again, reconnecting with people he had drifted away from during the later years of his marriage. Eventually, someone new entered his life. Not dramatically, not through some cinematic moment of instant passion, but through quiet familiarity. A colleague introduced him to a woman named Laura at a dinner gathering. She was thoughtful, patient, and uninterested in the social games that had once dominated Olivia's circle. Their relationship developed slowly, built more on trust than excitement. Daniel never rushed it. Experience had taught him that emotional stability mattered far more than dramatic intensity. Meanwhile, Olivia's life followed a different path. In the months immediately after the divorce, she had assumed the humiliation would fade quickly. For a while, she maintained the same social routine she had enjoyed before. Late nights in upscale bars, weekends filled with parties and travel, friends who thrived on gossip and spectacle. But the tone of those conversations gradually shifted. In professional circles, rumors about the affair had spread faster than she expected. What began as whispers eventually became quiet reputational damage. Clients hesitated, invitations became less frequent. Marcus, whose charisma had once felt so intoxicating in Miami's neon-lit nights, proved far less interesting when real life replaced the excitement of secrecy. Their relationship, built on rebellion rather than commitment, lasted only a few months after the divorce became public. Without the thrill of hiding, the connection simply dissolved. At first, Olivia blamed everything on circumstance. Daniel's stubborn pride, judgmental colleagues, even the cruel gossip of mutual friends. It was easier to treat herself as a victim of misunderstanding than to face the deeper truth. Years passed before the clarity arrived. It happened in a quiet moment rather than a dramatic revelation. One evening, she attended a former classmate's wedding reception. Watching the couple move through the crowd, greeting guests with a mixture of nervous excitement and genuine affection, Olivia felt an unexpected ache. She recognized something familiar in the way they looked at each other, a kind of fragile trust she had once taken for granted. For the first time, she allowed herself to revisit the memory of that confrontation in their apartment years earlier, the moment Daniel had stood in front of her, devastated and vulnerable, asking only for honesty. And she remembered what she had said in response. Not the affair itself, though that had certainly been the beginning of the end. Affairs happen in many broken marriages. People make mistakes, betrayals occur, and sometimes couples find a way to confront them honestly. What destroyed their marriage had been something else entirely: cruelty. She had seen his pain and chosen humiliation instead of remorse. She had mocked the vulnerability of someone who had trusted her completely. That realization carried a weight far heavier than the divorce papers ever had. By the time Olivia understood it fully, years had already passed. Life had moved forward for both of them in ways that could never be reversed. Daniel had built something new, quiet, steady, and grounded in the respect he had once tried to preserve in their marriage. Olivia, meanwhile, carried the knowledge that the most irreversible damage in her life had not come from a moment of passion in Miami, but from the words she had spoken afterward. Betrayal may begin a collapse, but cruelty is often what ensures there is no way back.